Hello, and welcome to Horror Movies and Shit. I'm your host, Jim, and with me as always is...
Mark? Or Bork?
Or Bork, as the AI likes to call you.
Bork.
So we have a special guest today, Mark.
We do?
Yeah, why
Who
don't
we
you tell
have
us...
in?
We have one of my new favorite authors, Carlos Rivera. How are you, Carlos?
Hello. Doing fine. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, thank you for coming on. So,
Yeah.
in case anybody is unsure, you have your first book that just got published, right?
Yes, it's called The Local Truth. It's the first book of my White Harbor Trilogy. And I'm really, really excited about it. It just hit number 6 on Amazon's paperback new releases, and actually number 4 in their Kindle new releases for horror. So I'm
That is pretty
just
amazing.
all over the moon.
I
Awesome.
bet. That is fantastic. Now, I've already read the book. Mark has just started the book. So, Mark, what are your initial impressions?
So, Carlos, I managed to get through a whopping 20 pages before our podcast. And so, you can always judge an entire book by the first 20 pages.
Oh, really?
That's the rule, didn't you know? I thought you were an author. That's an author rule. No, but so far so good. I mean, it's definitely very descriptive. It gives me kind of, and if any of this is like, oh no, you're totally wrong. This the first 20 pages, very kind of Stephen King, Derry Maine type of vibe from it, almost a Lovecraftian feel to it too. So tell me where I'm wrong.
Actually, you're not wrong at all. Because the thing is, well, I love Stephen King. He's one of my favorite authors for horror, and he's the celebrity he is because he's really earned it.
Right.
So the thing is, the influence from books like It or Salem Slot, and as you read on, even a little bit of Carrie, you might see there. Um, you can definitely see that, but what I like to do is I like to take, uh, how would I say it, like the types of books that I used to read when I was younger, and because right now I'm ancient. You're not looking at me on camera, but I'm haggard. Um, and take those kinds of books, not just from like Stephen King, but like even manga like Junji Ito,
Mm.
or things like from Lovecraft, or even like video games, say Silent Hill or
Yep.
Fatal Frame. All of those little things, uh, put them together and just throw my own little blend of me into it.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up in this very small town here in Costa Rica. I live in Costa Rica, by the way, called Siquirres. And it was this very tiny, isolated town. And it's that town dynamic that is like everybody knows everything.
Right.
Quotations. Everybody knows everything about everybody, and everybody makes rumors about everybody, and that becomes like the town soul, those rumors and stories. So what I wanted to do was kind of take all of those things that I heard or that I knew when I was a kid and growing up in Siquirres, and bring them into um, a place that doesn't belong to me, like say like the United States, because I don't live there. So that way it would be like telling you a story that you're familiar with, but with some shades that you might not recognize.
So, yeah, and again, just with my first few pages, I really got that feeling about kind of the gossip, right, or the urban legend that's built up around this place, and it really does have that unreliable narrator thing at the start, where hey, what is true and what's not true, right? So,
Yeah.
I think that's a very interesting narrative to put, a reader into, or a viewer of a movie, where you're just being told things, but you know how people gossip, right? You know how people make up stories or embellish something that's happened. Um, so yeah, I'm looking forward to powering my way through it.
And
Yeah.
that's one of the things that I really liked too, Mark, was you really get a sense, Carlos, when you're reading the book about how people behave in public versus the people they are in private,
Mhm.
specifically about their opinions of people. And I thought that was really, really well done in this book.
Thank you. Yeah, and it's also the things that we just take as fact about our surroundings. Like, so obviously, I can't actually show you a picture right here, but there's this picture I have of the house across the street from where I used to live, and there's this house in the story called the Vanek House, and I based that house on, on that house across the street from mine, and all the rumors that people had about it. And one in particular, well, most of the ones that if you already went to like a scene in which you have like children just talking about the house, there's one story like the house across from me was a Masonic lodge like a very long time
Mm-hmm.
ago. And Costa Rica being a very Catholic country, you know, for like the people of that time, like when that house was still active, they were very freaked out by whatever was happening there. For them, they were all like satanic rituals and things like that because they didn't understand them. They just, you know, heard people murmuring and chanting and talking inside the house, and in their mind it was like, oh, witches, and that whole story about them. So there's a story in the book in which one of the kids says that her grandma told her that they used to put dead members of that religion in a box, and then they took him outside and they forced them to stand up, and then they would follow the corpse all the way to the cemetery where they would climb into the box and bury them again. That is an actual story that I heard from my grandma, and she would swear to it. She would
And that's,
actually swear to that story that that's what they did. They made the dead guy walk all the way to the cemetery and bury him there, and then they kept him there just in case they needed to call him back for revenge or something like that.
and that's very voodoo, right? So
Yeah,
voodoo obviously is an amalgamation of like African religions and Catholicism, right? And that's kind of where they both meld. And obviously, that's a zombie, right?
yeah.
That
Right.
story's about a zombie.
Exactly. And if you take into consideration that Siquirres is in the Caribbean part
Mm,
of Costa Rica, where there were a
Oh,
lot of immigrants from like Jamaica, Haiti, all of these other places, then you can kind of understand where all of these cultures come from. But
yep.
for like the locals who are just humble, uh, you know, workers of the land and things like that, for them it was like, oh my God, witchcraft.
Right.
yeah, it just reminds me. It's funny because I'm originally from Northern Ireland, right? So um, we obviously didn't have a lot of inventive people over there because there's an abbey which was literally 1 minute from where I lived. And that abbey was initially built in the year 588, I think, and it's got this wonderful graveyard there, and the gravestones they date back like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years, right? But we never heard any, stories about that. But that would be ripe, I think, for local gossip. I mean, this 588. I mean, imagine a building being there for that long, and it being an abbey, and having a graveyard with all these old graves in there. But yeah, I guess we're not imagining it. Too much time in the pub. I think I don't
But
know.
you
People
are
wonder
right.
why that's there, and alcohol takes care of them, not having to wonder anymore.
But I
Probably.
grew up in a smaller community. I won't say town because in when you're a kid, like at least where I grew up, there were three houses on our street, and then we had to travel 15 minutes to town. Now we're all in the same city, but in my opinion, we're not part of the same town. So we had the neighbors that we told these stories about. There was the creepy older couple living next door. There's the house down the street that nobody wanted to go into, or there was the graveyard that was up by the Catholic church. So I think you did a really good job, at least from my experience and what I went through growing up, in capturing all that the almost when you're a kid, there's almost a wonder about it,
Hmm.
and the in my opinion, maybe I'm weird with this, but the fear is almost intoxicating because it gets your juices flowing and it gets your heart rate going, and that's exciting when you're a kid. As an adult, not so much. You get, but
Yeah,
Yeah,
when you're an adult, there's enough real life scariness. You don't need to
true.
inject.
That's very
and
true.
and I hope that by the end of the first book, and then as it goes into the other two to conclude the story, I give you that exact same thing that you just mentioned, Mark, which is, so it's supernatural horror, so there will always be supernatural things in the story,
Right.
but
Right.
I want to create like this contrast between what when you were kids was like this were like the scary things, and then when you're an adult, what are the scary things? Because for
Right.
me, the main theme of the story, like if you dilute it to like the most basic thing, is trauma, particularly
Right.
generational trauma. Like so what your parents expect you to become, what society, what your town, what your workplace expects you to become, and then as you're an adult, what scares you is not being able to meet those expectations, and all the trauma that you went to as a kid might be actually working against you being the person that you want to be, and that comes through in the story. Like for example, one of the things Jim asked was about the Slashic Horror Press, which is the press that helped me publish the book. So they're a queer press, and one of the things that we were discussing was, oh, but does the story have any queer themes in it? And I
Mhm.
said, well, the story does have some queer characters, and maybe they don't come into play as heavily in the first book until kind of like the very end. But the theme of the story is very queer. It's this idea of my parents, my family, my town expects me to be this thing, and I'm this other thing. And
Right.
against all the trauma that I've gone through my life, um, I have this little group that's my little family, my chosen family, and these are the people that I feel safe with. So
Yep.
what happens when that past is putting those people in danger?
Right. And there's something about kind of the indoctrination of how it's going to happen to everybody, no matter where you are. There's going to be some sort of societal indoctrination, and we're very tribal, and you're either in the group or out of the group. But
Right.
sometimes you have to straddle the two, right? And certainly, I can only imagine what it would be like to be gay 100 years ago, right,
Right.
Yeah.
compared to now. So but still that expectation is there, and in the society, although we've become generally as a society much more inclusive, there still is a lot of what's the word, Jim? Not negativity, taboo about people coming out and that, and
Yeah.
it can be race, or it can be sexuality, or it could be, right now it's trans stuff is the big political talking point. But my point of view, not to go down the political route, but I mean, we're all here and we all live one life, so why don't we
Mhm.
try and help everyone? I mean, I don't really get it, but that's the terror of being an adult and seeing this around you, and there's no changing people, right? It's
Right.
it's just going to be a time thing, as long as more and more people agree, hey, let's help everybody out. But
Yeah.
yeah. Sorry, I've rambled on enough.
Actually,
so
I rambled quite a bit. I'll let you
Oh
guys.
no.
so
Jim.
Carlos, I'm really curious about your journey as an author. How did this book or this planned trilogy come about?
So it came about with me wasting 20 years of my life sitting on a story because I didn't think it was good enough.
Okay.
So what happened was that back in 2001, I sat down and I wrote this short story. It was called Memories of Age. And in fact, there's a chapter in the book called Memories of Age because of that. And the basic idea was just this character who's estranged from his mom comes back to his hometown to find out that his mom, who has Alzheimer's, is is the leader of a cult, and she's planning a ritual that he's like a key part of. And that was the story. It was just a short story. And I published it on this very small website that I used to have. It's dead since a long time ago. Uh, and I started getting emails. So I'm talking about a time in which ebooks and self-publishing and all of that was not really a thing.
Right.
But then I started getting emails, and people were like, "Oh my god, the ending!" And everybody was like, "Carlos, I love the ending. Oh my god, that ending was horrifying. Oh my god, that ending was terrifying. I loved it." And so then I started thinking, should I make this like an actual novel, like an actual fully fleshed story with other characters aside from this guy and his mom? Um, and I was very much questioning myself. I tend to be very insecure. I'm very anxious. Um, and I just didn't. And it was I had some plans and some sketches of things that I wanted to do, but I never did them. And then the pandemic came up, and that means being stuck at home for weeks on end. And that's when I said, okay, I'll give it a try. Probably won't publish it, but I'll give it a try. And that's when I started writing it. And I had published one version of the story that if I read it now, I would actually be embarrassed by it because it was very incomplete, very rushed. Um, it was the story was there, but it wasn't what I wanted to publish.
Right.
I just wanted to get it out there. Otherwise, I wouldn't. But then, as I was trying to sell it around, that's when I ran into Slashic Horror, and the I was actually shocked when they just said like, "Oh my god, we love your story. This is really good." They read like 20 pages, and they were like, "Okay, send us the full manuscript." And they were like, "Oh, okay, so we want this, and we want the whole trilogy. So
Oh, nice.
would you sign for that?" And I was like, well, "Of course."
What? Can you tell us how you felt when you heard that?
I mean, so first of all, I felt validated. That's
Mm.
one thing,
Hmm.
because again, I never considered myself good enough, and then hearing that was so validating. But the other thing I felt was how lucky I was, because I know just how many authors send out queries and send out queries and send out queries, and they just get ignored or rejected over and over and over and over. By this time, I had only gotten rejected, I think, twice. One did give me a reason, telling me it was because I had already self published a version of the story, and the other one didn't even respond. So that was the thing. I just felt lucky and validated, and it was amazing.
Yeah, it's just interesting. Because I read the synopsis, obviously, of the book, and I don't. Have you seen the Taking of Deborah Logan, Carlos?
I love that movie. I
Right.
Because
adore that movie.
because like the Alzheimer's, and then it's like being taken over. I'm like, wow, because I love that movie too. I'm like, yes, yes,
Yeah.
I want to see more of that because I think it's very, our brains are fallible, right? So if there is some sort of possession or whatever, it makes sense that if our brains are deteriorating,
Mhm.
that we are more easily controlled or manipulated, etc. So,
It does. I mean, it doesn't go the route of possession or anything like that, but definitely. I mean, first of all, that movie is amazing.
Hmm.
Um, but what I focused more on this story is two aspects of Alzheimer's. One is the fact that you're like perpetually stuck in the past. Um,
right.
and second, that people who suffer from Alzheimer's, it gets to a point when it's very advanced in which they suffer these very angry spells. Like
Mm-hmm.
I did read up a lot on it, and they have these moments of anger or frustration, or they just they're so confused that they get really angry. So then I thought, okay, so what if I have this person that has always been very resentful, very entitled, very set in her ways, uh, and this disease leaves her at a point in which she just can't evolve. She's just stuck in that very resentful past, and even her moments of clarity. are informed by that past, because it for her it just feels like she's jumping back and forth from resentful moment to resentful moment, and that's Martha Lang, the main character's mother.
And this is where we get that sort of young kids supernatural thing to when you're an adult, like the taking of Deborah Logan, right? You could take all the supernatural stuff out of that. That's still a scary movie
It
because
Yeah.
is.
people go through it, and you may go through it, and I may go through it, and that's just real life, right? So once you start mixing those two things, I think that's a recipe for success
Yeah.
because they're relatable, right? And there's something
Absolutely.
which may be inevitable for a certain percentage of people. So
Yeah, and then there's the what happens to the children, to the caretaker of this person,
hmm
Right.
and we're talking about just like in the taking of Deborah Logan, you see the weight that this is putting on Deborah's daughter,
right,
and that's the whole reason why the movie happens, because she needed some money to
exactly,
keep taking care of her mother. And in this story, you have a main character who's gone through very bad verbal, physical, everything abuse from his mother, but he's her only child, and there's this expectation from society of you
Mhm.
don't abandon your parent, regardless of how horrible they might have been. And I mean, if you've read 20 pages, I think you probably already read the interaction between the main character and his best friend on the phone, I think,
Mhm.
Yeah, I
when
think
he's
so.
driving in the car with
Right.
Nadine. So at one point, she's asking him, like, why are you visiting that woman? And he
Right.
goes, Nadine, she's my mother. I can't just abandon her. And her response for me is very, very strong. She says, yes, you can. And in fact, that's the healthiest thing
hmm
for you to do. Um, because when this is a person that knows everything that this woman has done to him, there's that uh, dichotomy of societal expectation
Right.
versus what's healthy for you. And in this case, it's something that I've gone through with my own mother, who, because of me being gay, during a lot of my life, she was very verbally abusive. And there were times in
Mhm.
which I wanted to leave and just cut off all interaction with her. But I didn't, because I was like, I mean, I'm her only son. I can't just cut her off like that. She's my mom. Um,
Right.
Right.
and you keep making excuses and excuses and excuses. And there's that part of you that wants to, uh, get on their good graces. Maybe one day she'll,
Right.
uh,
Still
she'll
understand.
see
Right.
exactly. And a lot of times that doesn't happen. In my case, I was fortunate enough that I do now have a good relationship with my mother, but um, I had to take very decisive action to get that. And this character in the story in White Harbor, uh, he's still at that point in which he has taken actions, but maybe not as decisive as might be needed,
Right.
because everybody else is telling him, like, why do you keep this person in your life if she's been awful to you?
So I do have a question about that, and I've asked some of the other authors we've talked to, but and you mentioned it in the book in the forward, about how some of the relationships are built on relationships you experienced in your life. Has has that caused any friction since the book came out?
Strangely, no, because I don't think my mom has actually read it.
Ah, well, I mean, you do make a point to tell her in the beginning, in the forward, that your relationship has changed and all that. So I applaud you for
Yeah.
that. But I'm just curious if because everybody takes from what they know. I'm just curious if that causes would cause an issue.
So that was one thing I had to contend with for a while, because
Hmm.
I kind of knew she wouldn't read it, because she's very, very religious. So for
Okay,
her, anything that's horror, she won't touch it with a 10-yard stick,
got it.
But I did have to contend with it, because I was like, other people are going to read it.
Right,
My friends are going to read it. My family, some of them are going to read it. And they know me, they know her, and they're going to go, oh, this is his mom, this is actually his mom. And yes, this is fiction, this is supernatural, this is a little bit more exaggerated, but
Right.
this is his mom. So I had to kind of uh, decide that it was more important for me to be honest than
Mm-hmm.
to be polite.
That's fair.
Uh, and that's when I said, you know what, the story's going there. And all the characters, they're probably the only two that are very directly based on people are, you know, Peter being based on me at a certain point in my life,
Right.
and and Martha being based on my mom. But the other characters, they are an amalgam of, oh my god, that I don't even know if I pronounced that word right. Uh,
It
Amalgam.
sounds right.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go.
English is not my first language,
Yeah.
Peter. So I write it very well. Pronouncing it sometimes, yeah. Um, but so there are certain parts, or they're an amalgam.
Yeah,
Oh,
you're right. You're right.
yeah, of several people that I've known. Um,
Right.
So they're not a single person, but there are things that people might be able to identify. Like, so I won't spoil it for Mark, so he reads it. But there's a scene down the line with like with this ruler with a T square that happens at one point, and yeah, that was me in school with another person, and yeah, it did land us in the principal's office, and it was really awful. And it even landed me in counseling and stuff because it was really bad.
Sounds.
Um,
Yeah.
so
Hmm.
if that person reads the book, they're gonna go like, "Oh my god, this guy actually put it there." But we're good friends now, so it's not really like a bad thing. But he's probably gonna go like, "Oh my god, he used that."
I,
But I mean
I,
that.
sorry, I almost wish that I had an author who wrote about me, whenever I was growing up. I'd be like, oh, we did that, yeah.
Yep. And in fact, so this person, so I hadn't talked to him for like a long time, and then once this is an anecdote, not related to the book. I was at a restaurant, and I was just eating, and I saw this family like on the table by the corner, and the dad in the family, he was actually quite cute. I have to be honest, and
Okay.
I told my partner at the time, I was like, oh my god, that guy's kind of hot, and he was like, yeah, he is, right. And then I noticed that the guy keeps looking at me, and I'm like, okay, what's going on? This guy's there with his family, why is he looking at me like that? And then he stands up and he walks up to the table, and I'm like, oh crap, what just happened?
Right.
uh, and he goes like, I know you, right? And I'm like, I don't know. And then he goes like, the T square,
Yeah.
Oh,
Carlos, you're the guy. And I'm like, and at that point, my reaction was just like I blushed and I went like, I'm so sorry.
funny.
And now you're gonna make him relive it if he ever reads your book.
Yeah. But I mean, but it's all in good humor now. So I
Yeah.
knew that I could include that there without triggering any traumas or getting into any legal issues. But
Right. So tell us about some of your influences. Like, what are your favorite horror stories, authors, movies? What really gets your juices flowing your creative juices flowing when it comes to horror?
so, well, I already mentioned Stephen King.
Hmm.
Well, I also mentioned Lovecraft, Junji Ito. He's the mangaka for Uzumaki and other really amazing, mangas that are just terrifying, like true cosmic horror.
Hmm.
And then there's other author that I always mention. His name is Dave. Well, his pen name is David Wong, but I think lately he's been writing by his actual name, which is Jason Pargin. And the thing about him is that he writes cosmic horror, but he writes it behind like the curtain of humor. So you
Okay.
have this book in which you have characters just going by the most adolescent humor you've ever heard, and you're laughing your ass off with all of these, poop and dick jokes
Right.
for a full book, and then you actually have to read really deep, philosophical and psychological and horrifying moments that make you feel like you're worthless in the universe. So he has that power of both making you laugh and disturbing you. So I really
I,
love him.
I love John dies at the end.
Oh,
I
it's amazing.
love the book. I love the movie too.
Yeah, both are amazing, and the movie is an underappreciated gem. I
Oh,
love it.
it's Don Coscarelli, right? So from he directed Phantasm, but
Yeah,
I knew I was going to love the movie from that opening scene, right? Which is uh,
the
ship, the ship of Theseus, right? Which is about the
yeah.
hammer, right? And I knew I was going to love it from that point.
Yeah, and his books are amazing. Actually, John Dice at the end is amazing, but my favorite from him is What the Hell Did I Just Read? Because that one for me is can I curse? Is it or
Yes, yes, you
it's
can.
such a mind fuck because you read that book and you reach a point in which you're like, wait, did the story just end? But then you're like, wait, but I still have about 40% of the book left. The book isn't over. What's going on? And then it continues, and you're like, oh crap. So that one for me is my favorite of the four he's written so far in that series. But he's wonderful, and just in general, anything that is like reality bending and exploring humanity and just how complex and weird we are through the supernatural. All of that for me is gold.
Mark has mentioned John dies at the enemy several times, and I'm on principle I have to reject everything Mark says. So
Okay, but now you have two votes in
I
favor.
know, I
You
know,
have to read it. It's
I
amazing.
do.
And the movie has to, and there's budget reasons too.
Yeah,
Cut a lot of the like kind of and part out, but I still love that movie, and the book's great too. I
yeah.
started the next one. That's the spiders one, right? This book
That
is
one,
full of spiders. I haven't finished it yet.
that one, incredibly, that one has been like his most commercially successful and the one
Mm,
that the critics love the most. But it's my least favorite
mm,
of the four because it tends to go into a more serious route. It still has those moments of humor and all of it, but
right.
it feels like like he's restraining himself too much. Because it looks like somebody told him like, okay, no, we actually need you to write a serious actual book, and that's the best he could do. But then when he goes to the next one, what the hell did I just read? He just goes back full balls to the wall, and I just love it.
And so sorry, I stepped out for 1 second. So I don't know if Carlos, can you give us? You might have already done it. Your favorite horror movie and your favorite horror game and your
Thank
favorite because you brought up like manga stuff, like anime or manga.
So he did mention my favorite horror game already. So I'm gonna give him props for that. That's
Which
Fatal
was
Frame.
oh,
Fatal
Fatal.
Frame.
Fatal
One of
Frame
the
is
one of the
amazing.
best games ever.
Definitely, that game is terrifying. And the
Mm-hmm.
second one for me, like if you played it, like the ghost that is like perpetually falling down the stairs and breaking all her bones.
Yep.
That for me was just one of the best ideas ever for a ghost.
Yep.
But like my favorite horror movie. Oh my god, so many. Um,
You can name a number of them if you want.
okay, so I'll go with. So I know that it's not really horror, more like sci-fi, but I love Alien because of
Me
that
too.
sense of isolation. I
Yep.
love The Shining. I really love The Others with Nicole Kidman.
Mm-hmm.
I think that movie deserved more recognition. Pan's Labyrinth for me is a gem.
Fantastic.
Uh, what else? Like more recently, so pretty much anything A24 puts out is wonderful. Um,
Have you seen
so
Talk to Me yet?
I haven't. I have to.
Oh, you will not
But
be disappointed. I don't think. I loved it.
Thing is, I'm waiting for it to actually come on streaming here.
Hmm.
The reason I don't like watching horror movies at the theater anymore is because the theater experience has changed a lot from
Yeah.
when I was younger. Now you're contending with a bunch of people with their cell phones and just being
Hmm.
incredibly noisy, and that kind of ruins the mood. So I'm
Yep.
waiting for it to be here on streaming and then watch it alone at my house with my husband and just being creeped out.
And Mark and I talked about this before, is the theater experience. The last movie that I remember having the full on theater experience in, the last horror movie, was Freddy versus Jason. Even though I think the movie is absolute garbage,
That's
the
great.
the audience was so into it and was just so gung ho. It was an amazing experience, and I have not seen it since.
You see, I'm totally different. Like if I'm in the movie theater, I want everybody to shut the fuck up. I'm watching a movie.
There you go. That's me.
Yeah, I'm not like that.
Yeah,
No.
if you want to go talk and laugh or whatever, step outside, go talk and laugh with your friends, then come back in and shut up.
I don't necessarily want the talking and the laughing, but the reaction is what I like.
So that's different, and I guess for something like Freddy versus Jason, that would be awesome. Like it would be like
Yeah.
so like when I went to watch like the Star Wars prequels
Right.
when I was younger, like the audience reaction at that midnight screening, uh, it was amazing. Like having just people go nuts over it
Right.
and just cheer at the logo coming
Yep.
up and all of that, and just watching people go crazy over it. That
Yeah.
it enhances the movie,
Yeah. Agreed.
but when you're watching, like a creepy horror movie or a
Yeah.
drama, which happened a lot now with the whole Barbenheimer thing, like
Right.
you go to watch like Oppenheimer and you have these 14-year-old girls just giggling all over the movie, like, what the hell is this? Oh my god, that's so boring.
But you have to remember, at one point we were the 14-year-old girls.
No,
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, Mark.
Well,
Most of us
no,
were.
I've never been in a movie theater and acted like a typical what you would expect teenager. Haha, never done it.
yeah, I'm
Then
with
maybe I'm
Mark on
just too
this one.
basic.
I'm with Mark
Yep.
on this one. Yeah, I mean, I
Apparently,
might have been a teenager, but I was never a noisy in the theater teenager.
I
You know,
was.
I don't remember what movie it is, but I'm like, what the fuck? Because I'm very introverted, Carlos, so I don't like a lot of people talking and blah blah blah. Like if it's a comedy movie or is it laughing, yeah, that's fine. But I don't remember what movie it was. But I was looking at these people. At the end of the movie, some people got up and started clapping. I'm like, who are you clapping at? Like, the director is not here, the stars aren't here. You're clapping at a fucking screen, and the projecting guy's like, "What the fuck are people doing?" I don't know. Just shut up and let me watch a movie.
They're clapping at they're clapping at at the projector
Right?
person,
Yeah.
I guess
at,
so. I
at the
guess so.
operator. They're like, dude, it barely even like you know had any issues.
Right.
See, I forgot where I was going with that one. So,
That's okay. That's
so,
perfectly okay.
Jim, do you want to say your favorite horror movie? I'll say mine. We can move on.
Well, I have several. I Number one is going to be Alien, obviously, because I absolutely adore that. Although I do have a question for Carlos, since you did also mention that Alien. What did you think of the most recent Prometheus and Covenant?
so for me, those were movies that had so much potential, but I think the issue was someone in like one of the producers went like, "We want aliens, put aliens there. We want aliens, like make references to alien." And I think like they didn't want to do that. Yes, it was going to be within the same universe, but the idea wasn't actually having aliens there. And
Right.
just the fact that they insisted on it, for me, made the movie feel very disjointed, especially the second one. The
Yeah.
second one doesn't make any sense for me.
I,
It's
I,
just a
I
weird movie.
I will give you two words about what's wrong with those movies, and it's Ridley Scott. Now this is
Sadly.
so and he's very vocal about this anyway, so it's not like I'm bringing up some point nobody ever knows. He doesn't care about the script. He doesn't really care about the actors. He just wants to make something visually awesome, which he
Mhm.
does.
Right.
And those
Right.
movies are visually awesome. but only whenever he gets an already good cast of actors and an already good script do his movies work. If you
Right.
look at Alien, Blade Runner, Gladiator, a lot of these movies, because these things are already in place, and he just wants to put on a spectacle. He just
Yeah.
wants to see how it looks.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, for the last two Alien movies, he got writers who it almost felt it was written by a committee,
Yep.
and people kept changing stuff all the way through.
Yep.
And I always say, like, for a movie, the number one thing, you can have a shitty director, you can have shitty actors, shitty, cinematographer, whatever. But if you have a good story there, if you have
Hmm.
good writing, that will still be a good movie.
And
I
that's
mean, come
I
on.
was
Most of the horror movies that we grew up with, uh, they had like zero budget, and
Mm-hmm.
right.
they just were working like on a on strings and buttons, and they
Yeah.
still managed to make amazing movies because the story or the concept was there. The problem now is that they're trying to. I mean, I'm pretty sure when they were doing Prometheus and then Covenant, there was probably someone in the producer's seat saying like, "Oh, we want an alien cinematic universe,
You
so
you
that's what we want."
you could see the backlash of Covenant
yeah.
from Prometheus, where they obviously, the studio went and where were the aliens? Where were the aliens? So okay, we have to have the aliens in this one, and
Mhm.
Right.
it's like for Prometheus, don't make it an alien movie, make it a
Right.
separate movie, or make it an alien movie and make it make sense.
Right.
But then just to have the backlash, we definitely have to have a bunch of aliens now, even though it makes even less sense.
It was, and the thing is, if they wanted to tie it to the aliens, because I mean that was kind of like the what
Mhm.
Prometheus was a prequel. They could have done it kind of like they did. Oh my god, I keep I just forgot the title. The movie with James McAvoy, different personalities.
Oh,
Split.
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 Split. There you go. They could have done what they did with Split.
Yeah.
You went to watch Split and you had no idea that you were watching a movie that was tied to Unbreakable until
Right.
that very last scene with Bruce Willis. Uh,
Hmm.
you didn't know, and they could have done that. They could have just done a whole movie with Prometheus. Then at some point in the movie, you have the tie-in with Alien, in which you go, "Wait, I've seen that," and that would have been a hit, and everybody
Yeah.
would have loved it. It wouldn't have felt so
I agree.
forced. They felt they had to include
It,
that in the
it,
market.
it could mean like they were on that spacecraft, right? And but you don't see the outside of it. But at the very end of the movie, it crashes into LV
426.
426, and then it
426.
pans out, and that's what the ship is. And then everyone's like, "Oh fuck, yes, now
Yeah,
I
Right.
get."
And it could
yeah.
have been, and that's what Mark and I have talked about about Covenant a lot, and my disdain for the movie. I was really excited because prior to it coming out, I'd read an article about how it was going to have the first gay representation in the Alien universe. So I was very excited to see that. I'm not going to lie.
Hmm.
Um, and a lot of people were sort of pissed because it was one line in the movie, and it wasn't really full front and center. But I thought it was really well done. Personally, I thought it was pretty great. It wasn't a big deal. It was just an everyday part of the guy's life in the movie, but they turned the universe's perfect killing machine into a science project for an android with daddy issues, and it pissed me off.
Yeah, that's the other thing, and that's my thing with prequels. So if they would have done a prequel that was only related by something as, oh, it ended up on the ship that we
Mm-hmm.
see at the beginning of Alien,
Yep.
that would have been fine because you're not
Yes.
explaining the alien. The
Right.
moment that you get into oh, we need to explain this creature that has been so famous for such a long time, that's when you start killing the mysticism around it.
And
Yep.
it's not even that. It's like with specifically sci-fi prequels. like every single time, like the tech they have in the prequels are better than the tech they have after
Right.
the prequels.
Of
Yep.
course.
Like look at Prometheus compared to the ship and Alien. I mean,
Yeah.
they're
Agreed.
you,
Yeah. They try to keep some of the aspects of it, but in general, yeah, it doesn't make sense in the timeline. Oh, so I was going to say this like before, but do you know for me what the best sequel to Alien is? So the best
What?
sequel to Alien is a
Yeah.
video game. So I don't know if either of you guys
Oh,
are a
oh,
gamer, but Alien Isolation
I have
Mhm.
is
it.
the best sequel to Alien because I don't think anything they have put out on cinema since the first movie has captured that sense of it could be around any corner and I'm in danger like that
Right.
game did.
I
You
do
know,
agree.
yeah, like randomizing the intelligence of the AI of the alien so that it just does whatever the hell it wants is the best idea anyone has ever had in a video game
Yep.
and,
because
and,
that
sorry, and then they tied in Alien with the downloadable content, right? So they
yeah.
basically recreated the Nostromo, and
Right.
Yeah, and it's a way to continue the story in a way that doesn't feel like it's taken away from the original story. It's very faithful to it, and I mean, it's like you can just take the story or not take it, and it doesn't hurt the first one. And it
That's
brings something new to the table. Like for example, in that game, if you've seen the worker Joes, these
Mhm.
Mhm.
these androids, those things are the creepiest thing I've ever seen in my entire life.
Yep. They
And
are.
the funny thing was that they're creepy because what they were trying to do was not have uh, what happened with Ash in the first movie happen,
Right.
which was, oh, we want to make an android, but that you know is an android, so that you feel safe. Instead, we're going to create these horrible things with weird skin that just
Right.
wrinkles here at the neck and just have glowing eyes, and they look like Satan made them. You know,
Right.
it's
So, Mark, what was the other question you had besides just the movie? And oh, is
video game.
video game, which you brought up Alien Isolation. Is there any others?
so in horror. Well, there's Alien Isolation, there's Silent Hill, and I do take some inspiration from Silent Hill, but you know, pretty much a lot of people in modern horror do that. Like if you look
Yeah.
at Stranger Things, that's as if somebody wanted to make a Silent Hill series and they told them no.
Right.
Um, and
What
well,
did you think of the Silent Hill movie? Just the first one. We won't talk about the second
visually very good.
Yeah.
one. Hmm.
Uh, but they did the thing that I don't understand why they keep doing, which is like you already have the story.
Hmm.
Why do you need to change it when you already have the story? You know
Right.
your base is going to be fans of the game who are looking to see the story on a movie. Why change it? And
Right.
Well,
and yeah,
you can say that, and then look at the Resident Evil movies, and like
oh my god.
they totally threw out
Yeah,
all the story.
for me, the Resident Evil movies are the Fast and Furious of the horror genre.
Right. Yeah.
I will say that the Resident Evil Welcome to Raccoon City I really did enjoy.
That was dog shit, Jim.
Uh,
I I don't care. I appreciated it because as a casual fan of the games, I could identify parts that they
Yeah,
recreated
yeah,
in
they
the
dropped
movie.
the little Easter eggs in for
Yes.
you casual fans, but
Right.
as a movie, it doesn't make a lot of sense.
And that's
yeah,
okay for me sometimes.
Yeah, that's fine.
Much
You're right.
like my love for the Meg.
Right.
Mark
Oh,
here
God.
hates it. He thinks it's dog shit. I think it is a fun, stupid summer monster movie. It's not designed to be a great film. It's designed to be a fun, stupid monster movie, and it does that for me.
I kind of agree, but you know, I kind of think like if you look at the first half of the movie,
Hmm.
um, it looks like initially they were going for something different,
Yeah,
and,
that's
and
true.
then
It, it,
and then somebody said, "Let's cast Jason Statham," and everything else changed.
Jason Statham. It commits a cardinal sin of movies. It's boring, and you should not have a boring movie with a megalodon in it.
And Mark is convinced the only reason I like it is because Jason Statham's abs.
Hey Jim, you should look at my
Yeah,
abs.
yeah.
But I did.
It,
I'm a big fan of the books. I've read the entire series so far, and I absolutely love them. But and I was really distressed with some of the changes that were made in the film, but I was able to remove that from the movie experience itself, and I just had fun watching it. It's not a perfect film, it's not a great film, but it's fun, in my opinion.
It's boring.
it is fun. I agree. It is fun. I don't think it's boring, but I do think uh, it just becomes like big action movie with big
Yeah,
shark, and
exactly, and that's exactly what I went in expecting it to be. So I was
yeah,
not disappointed.
yeah. I guess if you look at it that way, it works. But yeah, I don't know. I still stick with Jaws as the scariest, even though
Oh
the,
yeah,
the shark. Now you look at it and it's it's just horrible. Like it looks like a really big tube of toothpaste. But it's
Jaws, even now, right? You don't even care that it doesn't look great because
right.
everything else about the movie is
It's so
so
well
good.
done.
yeah. And
But
and
So
that,
Mark,
that first scene, I mean,
Mark
the very
introduced,
first scene is still one of the most
oh
terrifying scenes in movie history.
yeah, absolutely.
and Mark will be the first one to tell you he introduced me to a movie that is almost on the same cinematic level as Jaws. Remember, Mark?
Which
Oh,
one?
The Last Shark.
Yeah, The Last Shark,
It was an Italian ripoff of Jaws with
and
big.
it is so fucking terrible, but in the best possible
Oh,
way.
it's great. It's just fun. That is a
Yeah,
fun movie.
that is a fun, terrible shark movie.
I haven't seen it, but it does sound fun.
Yeah,
So so
Mark makes
Italian,
very few good recommendations, and that's one of them.
so Italian cinema is obviously very well known for just like ripping off American blockbusters. That was like one of the first. It's
Well,
funny.
but if you look at something like, for example, like Suspiria, like the
Hmm?
original. I mean, I'm of the opinion that Suspiria is one of those movies that the remake is better than the original. So that is my opinion. I know a lot of people disagree, but for me, the remake is better than the original.
Uh,
But the original is terrifying. So
so the Italian cinema, right? They cornered a lot of the certain very specific types of movies, right? So we got and Suspiria is not a giallo, but they've got like the murder mystery giallos. Argento went into more of his supernatural stuff with Suspiria.
Mhm.
Cannibal movies, Italy did them best.
Yeah.
But what I will say, Carlos, I think that Suspiria the original and Suspiria the remake work perfectly together, right? So I could watch them back to back because I think the remake does enough interesting things to the original that it makes it its own movie. And I'll say that with like the original Maniac compared to the Maniac remake. I
Uh
think
huh.
both I could watch them back to back and have a great time with both of them.
Yeah.
I can't speak to Maniac, but I did not like either Suspiria.
Really? Oh
Yeah,
wow.
not so much.
Jim doesn't really like horror movies,
No,
Carlos.
not at all. Not at all.
No, but I love
I
the
I
I
would
love
find
the
it
choices.
strange considering the name of your podcast, but
it
okay.
is right.
I love the choices that they made for the Suspiria remake because they knew they couldn't just do like a not even a psycho scene for scene remake, but
Right,
to capture that sort of ethereal thing that Argento did back in the 70s, they couldn't do it again, right?
right.
There's no way. So they said, we're going to take this as a basis and we're going to expand it and make it different.
Mhm.
And um, just, yeah, I like both of them. I really do.
Yeah,
So,
and you actually mentioned like the scene by scene remake of Psycho. Thank you for bringing up that horrible mental image.
so
But uh, For me, which is the good remake of Psycho, the series, Bates Motel, because
Yeah,
it changes a lot of stuff which shouldn't work. It was
right.
not afraid of trying things that had nothing to do with the original. Even the portrayal of Mother uh,
Yep.
is not what you would have expected, because you kind of expected, Mother to be like this very strict, very disciplinarian kind of mother,
Right.
but instead she's this very carefree woman and everything. But her kind of psycho son sees her as this, uh, you know, disciplinarian, and for me that was fascinating, and I thought like the Freddie Highmore, is that the name of the
Yes.
actor? His
Yep.
portrayal, spectacular.
I have to say that was for me anyway. That was his transition from being a child star,
Hmm.
from like the Spiderwick Chronicle days into that was amazing. I
Yeah.
thought he did such a great job in that role. So let me ask you this, Carlos. I had a recent experience, which
Uh-oh.
no, Mark, we talked about this. I had yet to find a movie that I enjoyed more than a book, but I had this experience recently where I read a book called "The Cabin at the End of the World," and I did not
Mhm.
enjoy it at all. I thought it was boring, and it was too. It just was too slow for me. The movie "Knock at the Cabin," which is based on that movie on that book, was fantastic.
I still have to watch it. I'm looking forward to it.
I was pleasantly surprised, and no disrespect to the author because there's a lot of his other works that I absolutely love. It's just that book didn't work for me. But have you had that experience yet?
Huh. I know I have. I don't have the name of the movie. I can't really remember, but yes, I know. I know there is one movie in my mental list in which I'm like, oh, that's
Hmm.
better than the book. But
Right.
no, I can't say right now. I don't have any.
What about you, Mark?
Books better than movies? Movies
No.
No,
better
the
than
other way around. Movies better than books.
Jaws.
Oh, that's right, because you don't like the Ellen Brody sideline. I do in the book. I think
I,
it's fantastic in the
I
book.
think the movie is a much better experience than the book. But I tend to look at these things differently anyway. And we've talked
Hmm.
about this before,
Yeah.
Jim. They're different media, right?
Right.
So if you made a movie, an audiobook, a video game, these are all different media, right?
Right.
And I love The Relic,
Yep.
right? The
We've
book,
talked about that. Yep.
and I really like the movie too. And I see them as two kind of separate entities. So
But in your
That's the one
defense,
with the sorry, that's the one with the friends that go on a vacation after one of them dies, and
no,
no,
that's
that's the ritual.
the
oh,
ritual.
Ritual. There you go.
Yep. He's
Oh no,
he's
I know
talking
which one
about
you're
the
talking about. Yeah.
Tom Sizemore and Penelope
Yep,
Ann Miller, right?
yep.
So this is the thing we talked about. Both of us enjoy this series of books called the um, Pendergast series or mysteries or whatever they call it.
Lincoln Child and Preston
Douglas
Little.
Preston.
That,
So,
that was
but
it. So,
and the Relic was the first book. However, in the movie, they wrote out the main character. So I had seen the movie and enjoyed the movie, not knowing that. And then I read the book many, many years later and went, "This is not the same."
yeah, and I think there's also a thing about which one did you read or see first, right?
There is
If you
always
watch,
that,
if you
yes.
watch the movie, then you read the book, you might have a different opinion. What if it was vice versa. So
Yeah, there's always that. There's always you always have a little bit of nostalgia for whatever medium you experience first.
Yeah.
I think anyway.
Yeah. That's true. But yeah, I can't think of one. I know I have one, but I can't think of
I'm
one.
sure.
Okay. Oh, okay. So I'll go with this one. Even though it's not a movie, it's a series.
Hmm.
I really really liked The Haunting of Hill House
Yeah.
more than I like the book. But that's kind of unfair considering that it's based on this very, very, very old book
Right.
that it's very, how to say it, like not so detailed in its
Right.
portrayal, and I feel the series makes a lot of changes to
Hmm.
the story, but all for the better, I think.
How did you feel about the '90s movie?
The '90s movie,
Hmm.
I that was a big disappointment for me. I actually
Was it?
went into the theater expecting something really good, and I
Hmm.
really liked. Oh my god, the main actress. I like her, but I
Catherine
forget.
Zeta-Jones. No,
She
we'll
was
get it.
not the main
No,
one. It was
No, I know.
what's her name? Lily.
Lily Thomas. No,
it's Lily something, but I don't
It's Lily
remember.
something. I can't remember the last name at the moment.
Yeah, I thought she was the right person to play that role,
Hmm.
but oh my god, when it just devolved into this CGI, bad,
Right.
horrible, terrible CGI spectacle, it just, just having her
well,
screaming at the top of her lungs, Hugh Kane!
Right.
but
Uh,
but to me, it's the 1960s version is the best.
I
The
haven't
Robert
watched.
Wise one.
Yeah, and it's not. I do agree. I really love the 1960s version, and the story is okay. I wound up reading it in high school for a book report or something. I don't remember, but I do agree with you. The Mike Flanagan series was fantastic. It really was.
I didn't like it.
Oh,
We didn't ask you, Mark.
I got through some of it. I just didn't click with me, and I like Mike Flanagan in general.
I,
It just
that
didn't
was
click with me.
and that was gonna be my next question: is how do you feel about his other work? Like Midnight Mass was fantastic,
Midnight Mass was amazing. And I
and
might add that is actually one of the stories that influenced my current story
oh,
because of
Yeah, I
nice.
because
did
of
like
the
that.
yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh,
Sorry.
because of the religious themes there and the way that
Hmm.
people. So I guess what I took from it was this idea of how people interpret religious text to to fit their own agenda. Uh,
Hmm.
and the way that series used horror to convey that idea
Yep.
for me was awesome, and that was one thing that I really wanted to get through with this story. The way people just take their concept of God or whatever they uh, don't know how to explain and just
Right.
explain it in a way that fits their needs or what they want.
Yep.
So
One
speaking
hundred
of that,
percent.
I'll just throw out my favorite horror movie. Jim,
Martyrs.
you seen Martyrs, the French movie from
He
2009?
doesn't like the American remake. It's got to be the French
No,
2006.
I refuse to watch the remake.
Actually, let me look it up real quick because I know the name, but
He
Pascal
for
Bouget.
he forced
Correct.
me to watch this film. Like tied
I
me to a chair and got me
he
drunk.
forced you.
Yeah.
I have not watched it. I know of it, but I have not watched it.
do
You
not read up anything about it. Just watch it
yeah,
because
I agree.
uh, it's there's things that happen in it which you'd be like, oh wow, I didn't. Wow.
Yep.
It's on the more extreme side, but it's I think the best horror movie ever made.
I don't know about the best horror movie ever made, but it is very, very much worth the watch.
Okay, I'll add it to the list. So that actually brings up a question. Since I'm looking at the pictures, and it does look like it's kind of extreme.
Yep.
Do you guys feel the hype around Terrifier is earned? Because I have my opinions, but I wanted
Mark,
to
you
ask you
first.
Okay, so are we just talking about the first one or like both of them?
both.
We'll talk about both of them. The first one I thought was okay. I mean, I I'm a bit of a horror nerd, so I've seen a lot of like extreme stuff and da da da. I liked the performance of the guy that played Art. I thought the
Yep.
story. I thought the story didn't really gel together, but it didn't have to because this is like a trauma type movie,
Right.
and I liked it enough for what it was. I mean, like I said, maybe 6 out of 10, 6.5. Part two, I think, is a better movie, but oh my god, somebody get a fucking editor in there and cut this down to at least under 2 hours. Way too long. Again, I dig the gore, I dig the performance. Don't care about the characters. Doesn't make any sense. That's fine because it's just as an audience member, you're just supposed to be sitting there going, "Look at Art! Isn't he funny? On his little tricycle or whatever, and his little hat, and look, he's like fucking messing people up." What I will say is, my stepdaughter just recently got into horror. She's 17. Like, I'm like, this is a exploitation movies, right? She really likes the Terrifier movies. These are like just kind of old school practical effects, gore, kind of gory fests, right?
Yep.
So that's good because it's got such a wide release, right? And everybody was talking about it. It's like almost mainstream. So part two, I would give God, I'd probably give it, even though I think it's better than the first one, I'd probably give it the same rating just because it just was way too long. Jim?
So I have not seen the second one, so I can't speak to that movie at all. But the first movie, I thought David Howard Thornton did a fantastic job as Art the Clown.
Yeah.
I really appreciated all of the practical effects versus CGI. But I agree with Mark. The story and the characters I really didn't give a shit about. So
Yeah.
it was just okay for me. There were a lot of things that I appreciated about it, and there was a lot that I really didn't.
So the reason I ask is because for me I liked the first one. I
Mhm.
liked it for what it was. I mean, I guess I went into it with your mentality going into the Meg. I was
Right.
just
Yeah.
for that one. I went like, okay, it's just gonna be silly horror, practical, violent effects, whatever.
Mhm.
It's just gonna be that, and that's what I got. I didn't get a
Right.
complex story, and I got a really creepy performance from Art the Clown, and it started, it ended. I was like, okay, that was fun. All right.
Yep.
But actually, I think the opposite of Mark. The second one, for me, I don't know. I just kind of tuned out after a while.
Yeah.
Because it's long, right?
Not well,
There's,
yes, in part, but it was
there's
because
nothing wrong.
it didn't. I mean, the first one didn't make much sense, but the second one made even less sense.
Yeah.
So it was just like, oh, let's have just things happen, and that's it.
So Carlos, imagine you're the editor, right? And you have Terrifier 2 ready to edit, and you cut an hour out of that movie. I
Oof,
think it's a much, much better movie.
that's true. And
That,
there are certain scenes that I feel went on for too long.
like
Like,
that dream sequence at the start, just fuck it, like where they're singing and stuff. I'm like, this won't end. This won't end.
yeah, that was very long, and it just didn't. I mean, it had creepy moments, but it didn't go anywhere. And I feel like the thing with the haunted house that could have been trimmed down a little bit. And then there's one scene that for me is like the main violent set piece
The
of the movie.
bedroom.
Yeah, that
Mhm.
one for me is like there was a point in which I just went like, dude, I get it. I get it. Yes, you can do horrible things with a human body. I get it. It doesn't need to go on for this long, otherwise you make me, just
Well, you're like
desensitized to it.
after the first like minute or two, like no person would survive this, right?
Of
And then it
course.
goes on for another like 10 minutes. I'm like, a regular person would have been dead 8 minutes ago.
And that's something that a lot of filmmakers don't get right is the shock and awe wears off after a while, especially with extreme horror.
Hmm.
So you have to know how to time it perfectly so that it's still a little bit raw, but it's okay. It's happened. Let's move on so you can set up the next shock.
So
Right.
I will give you a prime example of extreme cinema done well, with a small caveat. It's actually a
Oh,
big
you're going to talk
caveat.
about a Serbian film, aren't you?
No, I'm going to talk about Cannibal Holocaust.
Okay.
Hmm.
Carlos, have you seen Cannibal Holocaust?
Yes.
So I think that movie. Okay, it's not. The actors aren't great, like a lot of Italian cinema, because you have a mix of some English speaking and some not, whatever. Um, but that is a movie that moves you along quick. Then it changes over to the found footage type of thing, and it's moment. So it's not just they don't just do one horrible thing for 10 minutes, right, to a person. They do 10 horrible things to 10 people over 10
Yeah.
scenes, and it just goes on and on and on. But you're still engaged in what's going on, right? Because I think with that scene in Terrifier 2, like a lot of it, because it's so long, it just slows the movie down.
Yeah.
And it's just like, okay, like you say, we get it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like we
It's like,
understand it.
isn't there anyone else we could be
Yeah,
maiming at this moment?
yeah.
I mean,
Right.
I think she's had enough.
Hmm.
Eh, yeah, move on from that.
Yeah.
But yeah, and it's for me. There are three ways. I do say for me a lot. Have you noticed? It's like this thing I can't get rid of in
For,
my head.
for, for me, I haven't heard
Okay, I hear it every time, and I still
Well,
do
I
it.
mean, so
it.
you don't have to feel self-conscious about it, only because especially with horror, a lot of it is subjective. So what works for you doesn't necessarily work for somebody else.
That's
So
true.
we understand, and that's okay.
Yeah, and the thing is, there are. I mean, horror is kind of like a very delicate balance of things, and you can approach it in
Yes.
different ways. You can have so the concept of peaks and valleys become this very important thing to use.
Mm-hmm.
If you just keep it at 10 the entire time, like violent, 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 violent,
Right.
violent, at some point it becomes boring. You can write the
Right.
most horrible, bloody, grisly scene in the universe that people are just gonna go like, "Oh, well, that happened." Um, but if you pace yourself, if you put quiet moments in between, or if you do like a carry or something like that, in which it's just building up with tiny spikes of horror, and then in the end you have this big blowout, then
Right.
it works because you earned it throughout the movie. And
Right.
um, like going back, let's say to my book for a second, that's one thing that Mark, you might notice as you read it. So I do take my time to build it. I
Mm-hmm.
will give you like little spikes of horror here and there, but I want it to build up so that when I get to the scenes in which I'm meant to horrify you, which with your experience in horror, I might just fail completely. I don't know. The idea is for you to start getting immersed into this world and the characters, so that then when I go, oh my god, this horrible thing happened, you're like, oh well, that came out of nowhere, but it feels earned.
Right.
If I had just gone like scary scene, scary scene, scary scene, scary scene, scary scene, by the third or fourth one you would have been like, yeah, is this going somewhere, or is it just like little
Right.
vignettes?
So
So
yeah,
I will say that. Sorry, Mark. Go ahead.
no, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say. So you just made the comment about vignettes. There's one book that does that well, where it's just death, 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 and it's just short little story, and that is Cycle of the Werewolf by Stephen King. That's all it is, and it was turned into a movie called Silver Bullet. And that,
Yeah.
but if you read the book, that's all it is. It's the wolf attacks, the wolf attacks, the wolf attacks, the wolf attacks, and the story sort of plays a backseat, has a backseat, and it
It's
comes through at the end.
it's the same as James Herbert's The Fog. If you've ever read that
True.
book,
Have not. I didn't like the movie, so I never checked out the book.
no, they're totally different.
I don't disagree. I'm just saying the
No,
one
no,
put me off from the other.
no, they're totally different. The Fog, the movie, is not based on the book.
Oh, my
They just
mistake then.
happen to be, yeah, they just happen to be called the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
But yeah,
that's my movie that's better than the book, The Mist by Stephen King.
Ah,
There you go.
yeah.
And even Stephen King admits it himself. The movie's better than the book. There you go.
The
Thank you.
movie is a freaking gut punch.
Yeah.
The end of that movie, that I will say, Mark likes the nihilistic stuff. I
yeah.
personally do not,
Hmm.
and I absolutely loved the ending of The Mist.
Yeah.
So, well, here's the thing. It's not like I want every single story to have a nihilistic, bleak gut punch ending.
Right.
But like when you're watching movies or reading books or whatever, 99% of media has some sort of happy resolution at the end. So I
Very
like it
true.
when you don't have that.
Right.
Yeah. And I'm sorry I interrupted. It's just that I just got it at that time, but you were talking about the fog.
Oh, you don't have to apologize for interrupting. I do it all the time. It's okay.
Yeah, but
Yeah, but
yeah,
I'm not part of this weird power S&M dynamic that you have with Mark
Right.
going on. So uh, I'm
That's okay.
still getting used to pushing him down and things like
yeah.
that. But,
Jim's my little bitch. That's all you need
Yeah,
to know.
there you go. And luckily, Mark hasn't brought up my childhood trauma in this episode, so we're good.
So Carlos, if you want some true horror, listen to some of our past episodes where Jim talks about his childhood.
It's really not that bad, Carlos. He just likes
I'm
to
just
make it
kidding.
out to be.
okay,
Just
I'm
funny
intrigued.
episodes.
Yeah. Well, he likes to make fun of the fact that I saw the movie The Entity when I was 8 or 9 years old.
Uh
He
huh.
thinks that borders on child
No, no,
abuse.
no, no. You and your mom watched it.
Yes, we did. It was one of her favorite movies.
Have you seen The Entity, Carlos?
I think I did. I don't remember it so
Well,
well, but
it, it's basically a poltergeist raping Barbara Hershey.
oh yeah.
Right.
Right? Yeah, yeah. So Jim, when he was like 8, his mom. That's why I did that kind of gif of her with the sit down, sit down.
right. Right.
Yeah. So Jim and his mom sat down when he was like 8 or 9 to watch The Entity together, which I just think's weird.
It was no worse than her having me watch Blood Beach when I was like 6 years old. I still
No,
remember that one.
there was only one rape in that movie.
I don't even remember
That
that, and I
that's
just watched
very
that a couple months ago.
conservative for horror.
Yeah,
I would
exactly.
say.
Yeah,
Yeah. Oh my God, that's horrible.
So anyway, Mark fancies himself my therapist.
no, I'm not paid enough. Carlos, we're over an hour.
Yep.
We usually do like a what we've watched. I don't know if you want to hang on or
Sure,
tell us
go
what you
ahead.
watched. Or
I mean,
read.
I can. Yeah, I can stick
Okay,
around for maybe like 15 minutes, 20 minutes more.
Sure.
Stuff.
okay.
So
Yeah.
so we'll start with you, Carlos. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what you might have watched or listened to, whether it's horror related or not.
Read,
Uh,
whatever. Played video games.
yeah, no, actually, I haven't played any video games recently. I don't have time. I miss playing video games, but
Well, that's because you're
um,
busy writing your second book, right?
yes. And but recently I watched X. That everybody had recommended that one, and I hadn't watched it.
Huh.
I actually liked it.
Did
Yeah,
you?
I see Jim didn't, but
No,
I
not so
actually
much.
liked it. What didn't you like about it?
It honestly just felt like a movie that tried to pretend to be like it was made in the '70s, and it
Hmm.
was graphic just for the point of being graphic. It wasn't anything spectacular to me.
Hmm.
So
I
and I'll give my opinion real. Cause I just watched it recently too. Here's my thing with like Ty West movies. I think apart from one Ty West movie, I find all of like they're technically well done, but they're just boring as shit. X for like the longest time, nothing happens. It's just people talking at each other,
Right.
and I don't care. I
And the
don't care
porn.
about
And the
these
porn.
characters. And then it's like these are the weakest ass protagonists I've ever seen in my life, and it just annoyed me. And I don't know why Mia Goth had to play the old woman either. It seemed
And
weird.
that bothered me also when I realized it was her playing both parts.
And
I don't know why, but it
I,
did bother me a lot.
I like Mia Goth, but it's
Yeah.
just a weird choice. And again, Carlos, you were talking about the Suspiria remake.
uh-huh.
I swear, Ty West watched the Suspiria remake and then made X because he saw what Tilda Swinton did,
Uh-huh.
playing multiple characters, and he's like, "Oh, and Mia Goth was in the Suspiria remake. I'm going to have her do that too." Anyway,
Yeah, and no, she's awesome, but she's no Tilda Swinton. I mean,
no,
I
No,
would
that's
no.
true.
watch Tilda Swinton read the phone book, even though phone books
Right?
don't exist anymore. I think. Um, but yeah, I actually liked it because I did get the feeling of what it wanted to be. Because when you look at one of these old like 70s horror movies, like the protagonists are actually pretty bland, boring, bad actors, and they played bad actors. You know
It,
what
it's
took me out of the movie? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead,
yeah.
Mark.
No, it's not that they're bland. It's that they're fucking 90 years old, and I could kick the shit out of both of them with like both my arms tied behind my back. So they went around killing all these people. Like fuck, no,
Yeah.
don't.
I mean,
Yeah,
horror has gotten away with even
yeah, I know. I
less
know.
logical killers.
I couldn't suspend my disbelief. I guess that's what
Yeah.
it
Yeah,
was.
that part was kind of difficult to accept that it was happening, but I did get into it. Incredibly, what
Yeah.
got me out of the movie was what's her name, Jenna Ortega, the one that plays Wednesday in
Yeah.
Hmm.
the Netflix show.
Yep.
Yeah.
The problem was that I had just finished watching Wednesday before I watched X,
Mm. Yeah.
so
That'd
it
be a bit
just
of a culture shock, huh?
yeah, kind of like
Wednesday's basement.
yeah. I was like, oh, Wednesday getting fucked by a big black cock. I was not expecting that. I mean, if she does it in her daily life, that's perfectly fine. But I was
Right.
more like thinking. I know that probably I shouldn't have said big black cock. I know that that's not the
No,
right thing
I
to say.
swear to God,
Don't apologize, Carlos. We put explicit warnings on all of our episodes.
so
You
I
can say
swear
whatever
to
you
God,
want.
the first hour and maybe 5 minutes,
Uh huh.
that was the whole thing that was the conflict in the movie that they were trying to build up to.
Yep.
But that
I'm like,
was the only interesting part of
I,
that whole movie.
and I'm
That
like,
is true. I mean, and that's what I meant. Like the movie itself makes that character's dick be the you know
yeah,
kind of like another character in the movie. So
Right.
the fact that that character entered Jenna Ortega, it kind of got me a little out of the movie. I was like, oh, there's Wednesday,
yeah,
Right.
writing.
soon to
Um,
be.
But that was the only thing that kept me interested in the movie was will she or won't she?
No,
That was it.
I
After
like
after
I
that
could.
was done, I didn't care about the movie at all.
Interesting.
I didn't care. I didn't see that as any sort of conflict at all.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I guess you just wanted, yeah, you just wanted to see if they actually showed it. Um,
he was swinging it whenever the old guy came.
yeah. What was the other thing? Oh, the other movie that I watched was Evil Dead Rise, which I have to say I was not expecting anything from that movie. I was expecting zilch, and I found it fun. I found it entertaining, and it had some nice scenes. I felt like none of the characters matter.
Right.
I mean, I don't think that movie has characters. It just has potential bodies. Uh, but other than that, I enjoyed it very much. I thought the scary scenes and the performance of the mom as possessed was amazing.
I do agree with that. Mark and I agree that there are some missed opportunities with the film, like
Mhm.
the fact that they had an entire high rise to work with, and they chose to work with one hallway and
Yeah.
one apartment, and the beast at the end could have been better utilized rather than just pushing it into a wood chipper.
Yeah, and the other thing is you can very clearly see where maybe the monster wasn't working out so well for what they wanted, so they
Right.
darkened the scene so much to
Yep.
block out parts of it, so you
Yep.
never really get to see it. And it's not the Jaws. I'm not seeing the monster scary
Right.
effect, but it's the oh, it's I don't get to see the monster because it's probably really shitty.
I don't mind them trying something new, but I don't think it worked with
Right.
No,
the monster at the end.
no,
I thought it would have been more scary to have seven or whatever, however many people made up that monster, separate deadites running after them,
yep.
than just this one single thing which you can defeat in one single move.
Yep.
Yep. And that would
Uh,
have
uh,
been. I mean, I
there's stuff
thought
I
that's where they were going when all the when all the neighbors started coming back. That I thought that's where they were going. Like, oh wow, now
Right.
she actually has
so, so,
uh, a, a a floor worth of deadites to to fight with. But nope.
Right.
Do you know
And,
that meme from Upon a Time in Hollywood with Leo DiCaprio just pointing at the screen?
I was
I'm
just
like,
about to bring up the Easter eggs.
there's fucking Chekhov's wood chipper. Like
Yep.
whenever they showed it earlier on,
Oh
there's
yeah.
wood chipper. That's how it's going. That's how they're going to beat whatever is going to happen.
Yep.
Yep. And none. It was a very predictable movie, but I agree with you, Carlos. It was fun. I enjoyed it for what it was. It's definitely not a perfect movie, but it was fun.
I I was expecting more from it, and what ended up happening was, um, I ended up rethinking the remake or the reboot, and I
Mm-hmm.
ended up liking that more in regards to Evil Dead Rise.
Hmm.
Fair.
I had like a reevaluation of that one, but I did like the performance of the mother.
Yeah. The funny thing is that there's currently a lot of exorcism movies going
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah,
around, and in this movie, when she wasn't really like possessed by the devil, she was a deadite. She did a
right.
better possessed character than many of the people in those other in exorcism movies. That's what I liked about it. She
Right.
did a great job
And
at playing that.
you could tell she was having fun too.
Yeah.
Yep.
That
Absolutely.
and that always elevates performance.
Yeah, definitely true.
So, hey, Carlos, I actually have a question for you, and I don't know if I probably should have asked this way earlier. Do you have any
Oh,
plans for an audiobook?
I do want to, but that's gonna take a while because audiobooks are expensive.
Yeah.
Um, I had originally planned on narrating it myself since the main character is half Hispanic. I think my accent wouldn't be such a big deal,
Mm-hmm.
but later on, I decided I didn't want to narrate it myself, so it's going to take a little while for
Yeah.
an audiobook, but I definitely
Mm-hmm.
want to have one.
So I saw you post something online today about something you watched recently, and I wanted to ask your opinion because I watched the same thing yesterday. You
One
watched
Piece?
One Piece on Netflix,
Uh-huh.
yeah. So I
So,
didn't have any problem with
okay.
this series at all. I have one issue with it, and I want to see what you thought about it.
I haven't finished it. So
Okay.
I'm at episode 5 right now.
Mm-hmm.
So far, I've liked it very much. The changes
Mm-hmm.
they've made, I understand why they made them. Because I mean, we're talking about a 1,000 plus issue manga. So
Right.
they're going to have to cut it down because I was joking with my husband, like, I mean, they're going to be like in season 30, and all the actors are going to be senior citizens.
Right.
Um, if they do it just straight out. But I thought they did a very good job compressing it.
Mm-hmm.
What probably bothered me a little bit is there were some scenes that I felt were key to certain characters' development that were
Mm-hmm.
not included, and they could have taken that extra couple minutes to do it. Like, for example, like with Kobe and Luffy, when they were putting in
Yeah.
doubt his allegiance to the Marines, that he gets into this fist fight with Luffy, and he kind of lets him beat him up just to show that he's loyal to the Marines, something like that.
Right.
That was not in the show, and I felt that was a good moment for Kobe, and they didn't include it. But what was it that you felt was missing too?
So it's not that I thought anything was missing because I honestly I'm going to be 100% transparent. I've never read the manga
Oh, there
at
you go.
all. None of it.
Me either. I've
I've
watched
only
the
seen
anime.
the right. So I've seen the series. Obviously, I've watched a few episodes, but the one thing that annoys me about it so far, like it clearly is based on an anime. The visuals are perfect. I think it captures the spirit of a live action anime very well. But the
The
main
wigs.
character, and no, not at all. The main character, and I hate to say this, but I forget his name at the moment. When they flash back to him as a child,
Hmm.
the adult character has a very pronounced accent.
Hmm.
The young version of him does not, and that bothers the shit out of me.
That is true. I hadn't really thought of it, but yep,
Yeah.
you're right.
But that's how pedantic I get with shit like that. That it,
But I mean
that drove me a bit insane.
but there are worse things. I mean, I have seen. I mean, I
Hmm.
think we have all seen a lot of movies in which you see the character as a kid and the
Oh
character
yeah.
as an adult,
Yep.
and there are those in which you're like, this child could never have grown up to become this person over here. They're two
Right.
entirely different people. Uh,
Yeah.
in this one, I could kind of see the kid growing up to become this other actor, but I mean, not everything can be Stephen King's It.
No,
In
of
which
course not. But
the young actors and the old actors were like perfect match.
right. But that's more to highlight my focus, my hyper fixation on the little stuff. Like I could absolutely love a movie, and if something like that shows up, I hyper fixate on it, and it just ruins the entire experience for me.
Now,
And
I'll
Mark
correct
gives me
my
shit like that all the time.
I'll correct
Just
my answer to say the wigs the wigs in the show are just
oh,
They are
awful.
terrible.
you
But
and Jim are just two peas in a pod. Jim
my
will be
my
like an obvious 10 out of 10 movie. Oh, I don't like the way his hair was brushed in that scene. 1 out of 10.
so okay.
yeah, it's just that
Yeah,
it comes with the territory with anime adaptations, which they're usually bad. This one is not, but bad wigs and anime adaptations go hand in hand. It's just incredible.
There's two anime adaptations or two animes I would love to see adapted to a live action, and that is Blue Exorcist, because I thought that was a lot of fun,
Yeah,
and I would also love to see a good version of Tokyo Ghoul.
I haven't watched Tokyo Ghoul.
The anime gets pretty deep. I'll not lie. Like I think around season 3 when it first started, I was totally lost. Like the time jump was ridiculous in some of the character changes, but once you power through it, you get, oh, okay, that's what happened. This is where I missed it.
Yeah, I was going to start watching Tokyo Ghoul, but the moment I read all over the place that the second season was just bad, like really, really bad, that's when I started going like, damn, do I want to invest the time?
You just have to power through it because the future seasons get much better.
Okay, okay, so I'll keep that in mind. Um, what was it? Oh, there's this I would call it like a horror anime, even though it's not as terrifying that's going on right now. It's Dark Gathering, and the thing with that one is that it's the kind of cartoon because it is cartoony. It's not like serious anime. It is cartoony. It feels like Scooby Doo. Uh,
Oh,
it for me that one feels like modern Scooby Doo. Feels like what
okay,
Scooby Doo would be if it came out now, because
right.
you have these characters that look incredibly cartoony, that look very I guess, non-threatening, but it's conceptually scary because you have this little girl who can see ghosts and she's trapping the ghosts, and the way she treats the ghosts when she traps them is, um, I mean, it feels like she's a psychopath, like giving a puppy to a psychopath because she's
So
just
essentially,
yeah, it's horrible because she traps them in like teddy bears and dolls, and she keeps choking them or throwing them around or stepping on them or kicking them, and then she has this room, like the room she actually sleeps in, and that's what I find is more terrifying, surrounded by shelves full of teddy bears and dolls. And what she does when she traps a new ghost is that she puts it in the center of the room and leaves it alone with the others. Because what happens then is that all the others try to kill it. And you can actually
and
see the other ghosts tearing it to pieces, um, because
and
she's
this is
trying.
called Dark Gathering.
Dark Gathering, yeah. And she's doing this because she wants to find the one ghost that or the one spirit that the others can't tear apart, so that she can use it to defeat this demon entity thingy.
Huh.
Uh, and
does it
uh,
does it show that she's taking any pleasure out of it?
Not pleasure, because she's your typical not very expressive anime creepy girl.
Right.
She just talks like this. Uh,
Yeah.
but the way she does it is it's very matter of fact. It's like it's just. I mean,
Oh, okay.
you walk into a house and you see somebody
It is
kick
what
their
it is.
dog, and you see
Right.
somebody kick their dog, and they act as if that's how you treat a dog. I guess for them.
No,
Huh.
no lie, if I saw somebody kick a dog, I'd kick.
Oh, I once saw a guy kick a dog. I swear. I was in my car. I wanted to get off my car and just kill him. But
Okay.
yeah.
I agree. Okay.
All right.
Okay, Mark.
Me? I have a bu-
Sure.
uh, I have a bunch of things that I've watched, but I'll only touch on a couple
Okay.
for time's sake. I watched The Imitation Game
I don't know that one.
with Benedict Cumberbatch.
Okay.
So it's about Alan Turing. You
Oh,
know
okay.
who
Oh,
Alan?
I do.
Right. So he was the guy that broke the Enigma code, and he basically created computers. Jim, you should know this.
I do. I know who Alan Turing is.
Yeah. So if you know anything about what his life and what he did as far as ending World War II, like amazing guy, but because he was gay,
Mhm.
he was arrested, chemically castrated, and then killed himself just basically a year after that happened. And it's a very touching movie. It's kind of like A Beautiful Mind. It's one of these
Hmm.
eccentric genius people who are not very socially adept.
Right.
So it's kind of that journey of him. He knows that he can do this, but people don't like him because he's socially inept and he doesn't say the right things and whatever. This is a wonderful movie about an absolutely horrific um, incident in British history where honestly, like he probably saved. I think they brought it up at the end. Like historians calculated, he saved X million people
Mhm.
from breaking that Enigma code. Um, Benedict obviously is great in it. Absolutely love this movie, but again, it's like absolutely heartbreaking.
Yep.
It
Um,
is. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I read somewhere that the British government or the crown or whatever, they never did officially apologize for doing that.
no, they eventually did. They
They did.
did like a retrospective apology for what happened, and again, this is only you know, uh, within a generation, people were
Mhm.
being
Right.
chemically castrated and war heroes, right? Obviously, he wasn't on the front line, but he did more than all those people in the front line to save lives. And that's not only British lives or American lives, it's German lives, Japanese lives. It's like everybody, right? Because there was bombings of civilians and stuff. So, absolutely horrific ending to a genius who is socially awkward.
Yeah.
Uh, I watched um, Cage Dive, which was stated as Open Water 3, but I think it was a separate movie which they just slapped that label on.
Okay.
Now, I love
Yeah.
open water because that goes into my fear of being in the middle of the ocean. You can't
Here,
do
here.
anything. There's nobody around. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, so this and I don't know why they do it with a lot of these stuck in one location, which I love that kind of subgenre,
Yeah.
where you have to have some sort of forced conflict or drama in there. So it's like two brothers and a girl. So obviously we find out that one of the brothers who's going to marry this girl, the other brother's cheating with her, right? Like we don't need all this stuff. Like you're in the middle of the ocean. So basically, they go on this like cage dive, but there's a rogue wave comes over, so they're sitting in the middle of the sea. So these are all just the most irritating, awful people, and you're just come on,
Stop it.
shark, come on, let's go. let's go. But I swear to you, like, and this is not a comedy, but I haven't laughed. This is a spoiler, but nobody should watch this anyway. Apart from this part of it, I haven't laughed so hard in a long time. So they're in the
Good.
water. They're in the water, right? And they're trying to say, you know, they're all trying to keep like cheery, and they're all trying to keep together, and blah blah blah. And then they find from the upturned boat a life raft. Oh, there's a life raft over there, and they go over and they inflate it. Oh, thank God. Oh no, and I'm like, yeah, I actually feel a little bit of relief that you're all out of the water, even though I hate your characters, but I just put myself in that position. And then they're like, oh, there's somebody out there. And it's this woman who's obviously on that boat, and she's like barely alive. She's like hypothermic. So they managed to pull her over because she's been floating on something. So this is a chain of events. So they pull this
Clearly.
girl. They pull this girl into their life raft, and they're all trying to warm her up. Oh, she's so cold. She's so cold. So the girl on the boat is like, I know, I'm going to like this flare. And then they're
You're
all like,
kidding.
we're in a life raft. We're going to drown. Right? Because you're going to set the whole place on fire. And she's like, no, 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 I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. So
Oh
the
my.
unconscious woman, they're all still trying to warm her up, right? And they're fighting over this flare. Obviously, the flare goes off, and the raft starts to burn, so they all jump off. So the woman that they rescued, that was so cold, is now in the life raft, burning to death, and she's screaming. They're all just sitting there in the water going, this is so awful. I'm like, what the fuck did you expect? You like, that woman would have been better off just floating on whatever she was floating on.
Right.
You brought her in and then set her on fire. Like, oh my god. So
I,
yeah,
I,
this is terrible. But
I do have to commend the writers, though. I mean,
oh,
it's that. I mean, I can't picture a series of logical thought progression that leads from the cage dive to them finding this random woman floating, and
Right.
finding her alive. Like,
it's like
like I said,
yeah.
Giving. Well, you think about it. I mean, they're giving the woman a Viking funeral. I mean, she's gonna die anyway, right?
but the funny part, the funniest part is she's unconscious all the way up, right?
Until she
Until they
screams.
set that flare off, and then they all jump in the water, and they can hear her screaming. What have I done? Like, you just pulled her out from, she would have died. She was unconscious, right?
Yeah.
Hypothermia. You just die. Nice, relaxing way to die. No, no,
So they.
you want to set her on fucking fire.
I mean, they woke her up. Mission
Right.
accomplished,
Yeah,
at least,
yeah, that's true.
and
That's true.
they warmed her up.
They
They
did.
they got
Well
her,
done. As a matter of fact.
but yeah, that this movie was just trash, absolute
They might
trash.
have overshot it, though. Um,
Yeah.
I'm just thinking about it now. I just laugh. Like, you see, honestly, just I think I watched it on like Amazon Freeview or something, and so it's free. So just like,
Mhm.
just like fast forward until like an hour and 15 minutes. You'll fire, so you won't miss it. So just rewind a little bit and just watch that scene because you know what it reminded me of? It's another shark movie, Jaws 2, right?
uh-huh.
Whenever they're doing like the at the very start, they're doing like the skiing, water skiing, and Jaws attacks a woman. She pours gas all over herself and Jaws, and then she sets on fire. But this is like that on steroids. That was just, oh my god, it's the funniest thing. Okay, I'll just talk about one more thing. Carlos, do you like superhero movies?
Yes. Not recently though, but yes.
So I just watched The Flash.
Oh God.
I actually saw that also.
Oh God. Me too. I actually watched it this week.
Okay, it was just on HBO.
Yeah.
So here, well, I'll give my initial impressions and I can pass it on. So number one, Ezra Miller obviously has a lot of baggage, right? Just as
Yes.
a person, uh, and it's like it's really like if it was any other job, he wouldn't have that job with all the stuff that he's done. But as a character, as the Flash, I think he's written to be kind of annoying, right?
Yeah. Very
Yes.
much.
And they make a big point about that in this
And
movie.
Mhm.
and he even says it to himself.
Right.
Oh my god, you're so annoying. But we have so this movie's what 2.5 hours, something like
Something
that.
like that.
We have a good like hour 15, say first half of the movie, where it's Ezra Miller who's annoying, but somehow the movie gods have made another Ezra Miller character who's 100 times more annoying.
Yeah.
And we're sitting here with these characters, and I'm like, oh my god, I wish I was in the middle of the ocean and somebody dragged me onto a
A
life
boat.
raft, set me on fire
Waiting
Set
for
off a
Jason
flare.
Momoa.
because it's so annoying. And it's like the CGI baby thing. I
Oh,
I swear to you, I swear somebody sat there and said, yes, CGI is nowhere near good enough to have
the-
CGI babies, right?
No.
It's just not. But, but, hey, everybody, write this. I have a punchline.
Okay.
Baby shower. It's going to work. And
I will.
and
I
these,
have to. Go
go
ahead.
ahead, Jim.
Sorry. No, I was just gonna say the CGI in general in this movie,
It's,
especially when the multiverse shit starts to happen, is just terrible. All of it.
It's terrible.
and, and
Like
what
when they do
it's terrible.
previous characters. Did you see CGI Henry Cavill?
I did.
It's
I
oh
also
my
saw
god.
CGI Helen Slater, CGI Christopher Reeves, CGI Nick Cage. They were all terrible. All of them.
Yeah, and
And,
the thing is, in a different movie, that moment would have been amazing.
Right.
But
it,
at the end of this shitty movie, and with that CGI, it was just
It was
awful.
garbage.
apparently the director said it was on purpose that the CGI at the end was so bad
Why?
That's
because we're
because that
because we're supposed to be seeing it through the Flash's kind of mixed up reality brain, right? So they're not supposed to be actual people. Now the director is the same director of It and It Chapter Two,
Mhm.
Mhm.
which are both great movies, beautiful, like beautifully made movies, right?
Right.
Some choices are a little strange, but they're great. This is like I'm like, oh my god, they're bringing back the old Superman, and it's not the DCEU's fault that they are always catching up with Marvel.
Right.
We already had Spider-Man No Way Home
Yep.
Mhm.
with all the cameos, right? And that nailed it. And now this just feels like, oh, we have to oh, Marvels did it. That was really
Let's
successful. Let
let's
and the Flashpoint comic is really good, right?
Yeah,
The
but
Flashpoint.
I wish they had done that, or at least some approximation of that. But uh, they didn't. I mean, the what they did with this movie was just atrocious. I mean, and
yeah.
the only thing in this one even approaching Flashpoint is the concept of him trying to fix something by going to the past and screwing everything up. But um, my God, this movie was awful. And speaking of the CGI, there's one thing that annoyed me even more than the CGI actors. It's this thing in which I don't know if at any moment Ezra Miller was actually acting with the Flash suit, or if he
Right.
only had like the mask and that's all they shot. because if you watch this movie, there are so many scenes in which all you see is his head and then his CGI body that doesn't match the
It,
size of his head. So it looks like his head is standing still and the body's going like, oh,
it's like the Green Lantern effect, like the
Yep.
Ryan Reynolds Green Lantern. It
yeah.
was the same, like it doesn't look like you're there.
Yep.
Now, okay, we got the awful baby thing. We got the awful fucking him with his prior self, and it's just like torture. Get Michael Keaton comes in, and I like some of
He
his scenes, but some of it seems phoned
Some,
in, like he just doesn't want to do it,
yep.
Yep.
and he's just stuck in there.
But
Um,
that is
the
the only reason I watched this movie was because of Michael Keaton. The only
right,
reason.
the nostalgia bait.
Yep.
I was even watching it for the stupid hope that we might that we might get Christian Bale like a
Yes.
very hidden secret cameo, and we got George Clooney.
Yeah.
Right.
No, no. I was hoping that they were actually going to do, and again, because comics and movies, whatever. So Marvel comics steal from DC Comics and vice versa, and I thought they were going to do like the Spider-Man thing and have multiple Batman actually interacting with each other and
Yep.
talking to each other, right, and doing something together.
Right.
But they dropped they just had this like CGI abomination of like Nicolas Cage and stuff. I'm like, okay, so like, and I'm just picturing like the average Joe, right, going in to watch this movie. They would be like,
They
what?
wouldn't know what they're watching.
Who the?
No.
Why is Nicolas Cage as a long-haired super? And why is he fighting a big spider? Like they'd be like, I have no fucking idea. Like nerds like us know because we know about the Kevin Smith stuff.
Right.
But what I did like about the movie, it wasn't total garbage to me. I think I rated it like I don't know, like 5 out of 10. I did like the Supergirl character,
Yes,
Yeah.
even
it was
though
Yeah.
her
overused,
motivation,
but
yeah, even though yeah, and her motivations seem to be like kind of a Deus Ex Machina. She pops up whenever she needed to.
Yep.
But I did like that actress, and I did like that she was just kind of pissed off.
Yep.
And I think they're going to make a move. I think they're going to make a Supergirl movie with her. So I'm interested in that character. I thought that character was
Yeah.
good, and I think
the,
at the end there was enough emotional resonance after 2.5 hours of Ezra Miller and her mom that I was like, yeah, whenever he's like putting the tomatoes in her cart or whatever, or taking it
Right.
out, I'm like, okay. And he kind of won me over at the very end, but that was after like just a long time of being irritated with that movie.
Yeah.
yeah, and
Agreed.
what you said in the beginning. It's exactly what I thought. Like you take this actor who's playing a very annoying character, and then you add an even more annoying version of that
Yep.
character. So you have the annoying character playing the straight man to the extra annoying
Yeah.
character, and it's like you have to put up with these two throughout the entire movie, and it's horrible. I mean, usually you have the straight man character, I guess, to balance it out a little bit
Right.
so it doesn't get too much. But in this one, it was just both of them just being
So his
annoying.
other Barry Allen, I don't know, are they trying to say that he had some sort of mental issue? Because I know they're saying, oh, he's 18, but it's like 18-year-olds don't act like that. He was acting like he was like dropped on his head as a baby. Or, no, really, like
Yeah,
he was
Yeah.
like Bill and Ted's, right? He was like
Yep.
Keanu Reeves' character in that, but
yep,
even stupider. I'm
Right.
like, why do you have to dumb it down so much? Like,
yeah.
do you think it's funny? It's not. It's just annoying. Like, shut
Well,
up.
there was one joke, well, actually two jokes in the entire movie that I found funny.
Mm,
So one was when he tried to run without realizing he no longer had powers, when he started doing like that stupid
Oh
run.
my god, that goofy animation, even when he is the Flash, is just goofy as fuck. But
Yeah,
it was
and just the
yeah,
fact that they were at least aware enough
right,
to do that scene and make fun of it by just showing
that
him
didn't
doing the
stop.
run without powers, that
Yeah,
that was really funny. And then the scene at the end with Jason Momoa when he's like lying face down in like the puddle, and he's like he's drunk and he's like, oh, this is my home, this is my place.
Yeah.
That
That
for
was
me was
good.
awesome.
but it's so fragmented, and I don't know what James Gunn is going to do with like the new movies or whatever. But it's just like, oh, we have one like, and I swear to you, I swear, like Wonder Woman, the first movie, I thought was decent enough. I thought
Yep.
the second one was the stupidest movie
Garbage.
I've ever seen in my life.
Yep.
But you,
But
you know
that
one thing,
feeling,
you know one thing, and this is one thing that I'm definitely looking forward to with James Gunn's DCEU. And
mhm,
he announced The Authority, and he announced that he's going to be very involved with that movie. So The
right,
Authority, nobody knows who the fuck they are, but they were the reason I got back into comics again. Because first of all, they were if you're not familiar with them, they were this kind of Justice League analog, but
mhm,
they wouldn't hesitate to kill a villain, and they were actually going after world powers, not just supervillains.
right,
But also because they have these two characters, Midnighter and Apollo, that were the first prominently featured superhero gay couple, and they're Superman and Batman analogs. And I love them. I mean, I read The Authority beginning to end, and I love these two characters. And I never in my life thought that I was going to see them on the big screen. And now, after he announced that, I'm like, please don't hurt me. Please do it right. I want to see these characters done right.
right. And that's always a risk, right? I
Yep.
mean, whenever you hear about something coming up, I'm like, don't fucking ruin it. I'm so looking forward to this.
Yeah, what
Don't
gives
ruin
me
it.
hope is the way he handled the Guardians of the Galaxy, because the Authority are very much Guardians of the Galaxy ish, in the sense that they're not your truth and justice for all kind of superheroes. They're more like, oh, this fucker is messing up things. Let's just
It's
kill him.
like the Watchmen, right?
Yeah, and if the first movie succeeds, I really hope they eventually get to an arc in which they take over the United States. They actually
Oh,
kill the president, and they set themselves as the new U.S. government.
If so, here's what I would do as James Gunn. Okay, I'm head of the DCEU. I'm like, we're not going to do this multi-connected thing that the MCU is doing because we're so far behind them. We're going to do individual movies, and they might have the same character or the same actors in them, but they're not going to be this hybrid, catch-all ongoing thing. The first thing I would do is I would greenlight an Injustice movie,
Oh, yeah,
and I would say this is where we're setting ourselves apart from Marvel
yeah,
because Marvel hasn't done anything like that, right? And this is you're going to see Superman go fucking nuts and superheroes kill each other. It's not going to be like Civil War where they kind of like punch each other. No, you're going to have some people fucking. The Joker is going to get fucking murdered, and yeah, that's what I would do, and I'd say this is where we're going to go.
yeah.
yep.
See, that's where I would cast Jared Leto as the Joker.
Yeah, yeah,
Give us some catharsis by
yeah.
having Superman just put a fist through his chest.
Oh, okay. So my point, just going back, like I hate that Wonder Woman theme. Like it just like drives me. Like whenever she appears on screen, it just fucking annoys me.
Oh no, but they actually made it worse in the Snyder cut, because they had the guitar thing, the da-na-na, and then they added this other thing in which she comes in like slow motion, and you hear this kind of like thing, and every time she appears, it's the same thing, and it's the
I
worst.
know, I know, just stop it. Like, we get it. You don't have to do it every single. Like, I'm trying. There's no other character, I think, in movies. I'm trying to think that as soon as they step onto the scene, there's their theme going. Is there any
Right.
other character where that happens?
So it used to be like that with Batman in the 90s, but they actually made fun of that. I don't remember where. I don't know if it was in Saturday Night Live or somewhere they made fun of this, in which the character, like, he just oh no, it was in I think it was in Animaniacs. I honestly don't know where, but it was like every time like Batman or the actor that was Batman at the time appeared, they played that dun 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 dun, and then he left and he came back and it went dun dun, dun and he left, and then he just showed a hand and was like dun dun.
And maybe it's just because that theme itself is just so screeching in my brain that
Right.
I'm, it's just like okay, okay, and she's only in it for like four seconds. You really have to play that. I mean, pointless
Yeah.
cameo. Anyway, I, I've gone on enough. I have some other ones, but I'll save them for the next podcast. Jim?
Okay. I'll talk about a few of the audiobooks. I haven't really watched a whole lot of horror movies, but I do have several audiobooks that I listen to. So the first one I wanted to talk about is called Woe to Those Who Dwell on Earth. It's a collection of short stories by an author named John Lynch, narrated by Jesse Holt. And this book was not for me. I can appreciate that the author put his work out there. I appreciate that some people that enjoy extreme horror may really enjoy the book, but 90% of the horror revolves around mutilating a penis in every story, and it just got boring.
What do you
Yeah.
mean in every
So
story? Like, so it's like
so it's a collection of short stories, and there's one story where a guy kidnaps another guy and feeds him his penis on a sandwich.
That's not that extreme, Jim.
I mean,
So
but
it just it
it is kind of extreme, I would guess. I mean, it's I mean,
I
it
don't know
was done
why, but
in Hostel too, but
yeah.
not
Well, that
not
sounds
the
like
feeding
the
part, but the cutting part.
no. Do you remember the True Life German cannibal
Oh
thing,
yeah,
where a guy put out in the paper, like in the
oh, yeah.
newspaper, I want to eat somebody. Is
Right.
anybody interested? And then, yep, a guy came over, and they ended up cutting off his penis and trying to eat it and killing him and then eating him.
Yeah.
Yep.
But then it was
there are many ways I would like somebody to eat my penis. That's not one, definitely.
I'd have to agree with you there. The next one is called Vampiro and Other Strange Tales of the Macabre, which is a short story collection by Kevin J. Kennedy. And actually, it's not a collection of short, like normally his books are collections from different authors. These are all his stories. And these were actually a lot of fun. They're not crazy intense. I personally find them a little bit light, a little bit light. They're not scary. They're not super duper intense. They're not super duper graphic. My favorite was the story about Vampiro himself, where he performs in a circus and how he's able to blend in with the circus and do his murder and that kind of stuff. It's basically him telling him stories, sort of Interview with a Vampire-ish. So I really liked that collection of stories. Mark, I finished the series Highmore. I read the third book, Blood Moon, and I will tell you the book is just as fantastic as the other two up until the end. It is the least satisfying ending of a book series I've ever read. So, Carlos, this is a series of werewolf books,
Okay.
and they're not just your regular normal werewolves. They are militant. They're a group called the Pack, and they're run by one leader. The first book, you hear about their life as children and how they became werewolves. The second book is about them fighting because some of them have been captured and they're trying to recapture themselves, or they're trying to save those people. And the third book is them finally saving those people and then what happens afterwards. And I will say honestly, I was extremely disappointed with the way the book ended. It
Oh
sort of
wow.
felt like he phoned it in. And the last thing I was going to talk about is Frost Falls. This is a book by Eve Evans, narrated by I'm gonna butcher his last name. Disdio, I think is how you pronounce his last name. This is everything you absolutely expect from a haunted house book, but it takes place in a chalet or a mountain resort that is haunted. So think of like The Shining,
Mhm.
but it's one ghost, and these two girls make a bunch of really terrible decisions, really stupid decisions, to visit this chalet that or this mountain retreat that burned down 70 years ago, and they're staying in the room where the fire started, and now they're investigating what happened, and they have to do all of this because the ghost is trying to claim them as its next victims. It's basic run of the mill, but it was fun. There's
Well, that's
nothing
cool.
really new or exciting in it, but it was a solid story, and I enjoyed it.
Well, that's cool.
That's all I got. So
Carlos?
Mark,
No, hang on. So,
yep.
Carlos, remember you said you will be on for an hour?
Yeah, and I'm looking at the
We've
time
drawn
now.
you in for our 2 hour spot.
We have a tendency to do that.
No, but
By the way, Carlos, I
it's
love your shirt. Metro Man was one of my favorite games.
Mega Man.
Metroid is one of my favorite games. I
Oh
love
yeah,
that game. Yeah, Mega Man. Thank you.
yep. And so the thing is, it's a testament to just how much fun I've been having. It's been really awesome talking to you guys, and
You.
also just even more to add to that. So I'm actually sick right now. My lunch,
Oh.
Oh,
it kind of did all the wrong things to my body,
Oh
and
no.
I've been like my stomach hurts. I feel like I'm gonna die, and I'm actually sweating cold. And
Oh no.
I've stuck around because I've been having a lot of fun. And don't
Good.
worry. I mean, it's just a discomfort. It's not nothing. It's nothing serious. I'm not just gonna drop dead in the
Good.
middle of the podcast. But
That would be
you know,
great. That would not be good.
that would actually
That
draw
would
an
not.
audience, like a larger audience. Guest eyes
Only
in
if
the
we had it
middle of
on
the.
video. Right. Yeah.
well,
Only if we did the video.
it's like if you have a headache, but
Yeah.
then you get kicked in the balls, right? So you get kicked in the balls, and that takes your attention away from your headache. You are the kick in your balls.
Yeah. Mark has definitely been compared to a kick in the balls many times.
No,
Okay.
kick ass, Jim. Your mom told me. Oh, sorry.
Just a little bit further to the back is where you
Yeah.
get.
There you go.
Um,
So, Carlos, thank you very much for spending your time with us today. This has been a lot of fun, and you are welcome to come back on anytime you want.
anytime you want me here, just let me know, and we'll schedule it. I would love to. I had a great time.
And Carlos, do you want to give any more sales pitch for a lovely audience? Where can they find your books, or how did they get in contact with you, websites, etc.?
So you can find the local truth in at Amazon or Barnes and Noble or pretty much anywhere that you can buy books online. It's on ebook and paperback. So at Amazon you can get it for free on Kindle Unlimited, or you can also buy the paperback. Here's a fun fact: because of the cover, I guess, and because it's kind of like a thick book, I've been selling a lot more paperbacks than ebooks, and that's abnormal.
Wow.
uh,
Yeah.
and it's actually been doing really well. So I mean, if you can find it at Amazon and get it, and right now it's number 6 and number 4 depending on the type. And if you guys buy it and can help me push it to number 1, you would make me the happiest person in the whole world.
Yep.
You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok as well with the handle Visit White Harbor. And yes, this is book 1 of my White Harbor Trilogy, and book 2 is 70% done right now, and I'm so happy with where it goes.
That's fantastic. Yeah, I think Instagram is the only place I don't follow you because I don't use Instagram most of the time.
It's usually where I get the least traction. I've noticed, like Facebook
Yeah.
and TikTok are the places where I get the most
Your
traction.
your content on TikTok is a lot of fun. I enjoy it.
And here's a fun
I
fact:
was always
I
kidding
actually
your
hate recording and editing videos, but I do it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I can understand that. What'd you say, Mark?
I
You're
said
over there
you
talking
kids and
shit.
your TikToks. What's a TikTok?
Mark refuses to listen to the podcast. He refuses to watch any of the TikToks I make for the podcast.
Yeah, yeah.
He comes on to talk, and that's it.
That's the way I
That's all he
support
does.
this podcast. Oh, by the way, I did buy. I don't have Amazon Unlimited or Kindle Unlimited, but it's $3 in the US to buy the book.
Yeah.
Yep.
If you're not if you don't have a Kindle Unlimited membership, yes, it's $3.
Right.
Yep.
So,
And one more thing, sorry. It includes the novel itself, like the book one of White Harbor,
Mhm.
and then at the end you have a bonus novella, which is kind of like a prequel.
oh,
And it's at the end of the book, and it's a novella called "I Am the Door." So the fun thing about that one is that it's its own standalone story, but if you read the whole book, you can kind of see where there are some connections to it, especially where it happens, which is the Vanek house. But that was a really fun addition to the book. So you're getting
Awesome.
something extra for your cash.
very cool.
That sounds awesome. So, Mark, is there anything else you want to say?
No, I think we should let Carlos go lie down and
Yeah, we want
hydrate.
you to. Yeah, we want you to go feel better at least.
Thank you. I'm actually just gonna go, take a pill and go lie down for a bit.
You probably need to after dealing with Mark for this long. I usually do.
Oh, Mark, you're all right. You're all right. I mean,
Placebo. You're okay.
Yeah.
yeah.
That's right.
I get this whole, S&M situation you guys got going. I'm more voyeuristic, so I'm just watching you guys abuse each other. That's totally fine by me.
Yeah,
That's
there is
fair enough.
for that. Yes.
Yeah,
All right.
Okay.
Thank
Thanks.
you again, Carlos. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Had a great time.
Bye.